Welcome to the Fearlessly Fertile Podcast, episode 330. They got pushed into IVF, but they proved they could do it naturally. Krysten and Carson's story. Loves, I'm so excited to be back with you this week with yet another testimony of triumph from one of my miracle couples. And I love this conversation so much because you're going to hear both Krysten and Carson sharing their insight, because when they got started on their fertility journey just over 5 years now, one of the things that came up for them is they were told that Krysten had a low AMH and that her only option was to do IVF and to do it now. And so many women come to me from all over the world hearing the same thing, that their chances are low, that they only have one option. But consistently, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know that my ladies are internet famous for absolutely blowing past those statistics and, frankly, making them irrelevant. But you're going to hear that, yes, indeed, Krysten and Carson were pushed into IVF. But over time and over their experience, they realized that they didn't really line up with valuing IVF. They didn't have anything against it. It just wasn't for them. And they felt this in their bones. But what did they do? They did what they were told. But when they stepped back into the truth of what they really desired and started to believe in themselves again, got their mind and body recalibrated for fertility success, boom, baby, boom. So I'm so excited for you to be inspired by the generous kindness and openness that they're sharing here. Because as much as this was Krysten's story, it was also Carson's. And I think it's so fantastic that we get real insight, real living proof of how possible beating the odds is for you. So here is my conversation with the amazing, adorable, smart AF, Krysten and Carson. Okay, guys, we are having a conversation that I have been looking forward to having for some time. So why don't you guys start off? And whoever wants to start off first, how did you guys find yourself on this journey?
Sure, I'll kick things off. So we got married in 2019, and our plan was to have our honeymoon in May 2020. Since the pandemic happened, obviously that wasn't able to work for us. And so we decided that we were still going to try right around that timing of May 2020. You know, month after month kept happening, and I kept getting my period. And after 7 months of trying, I decided, I should go to a fertility clinic, kind of check out what's going on, just get everything checked out. And at that point, I was told that I had low ovarian reserve and low AMH, and that I would need to jump into IVF right away. And I was completely shocked. I had no clue about any of this. I felt really pressured, really scared, started to feel doubts about myself, my body, and just kind of didn't know where our journey would go from here. So I started to spiral a bit emotionally, but I wasn't quite ready to jump into IVF. So at that point, decided to really try everything as naturally as possible. Acupuncture, acupressure, Chinese herbs, those moxa. He loves calling it the little turtle.
Yeah, I remember lighting this incense turtle every night, placing it on her belly. And the qigong in the bedroom.
Qigong, yoga. I mean, I ordered fancy ovulation trackers. I was really trying everything under the sun to not have to jump into IVF quite yet. But yeah, after about 7 months of trying all these natural routes, still wasn't making any progress. And so we decided to go into a fertility clinic and try IUIs first. So we did 3 medicated IUIs, and, first one didn't work, second one didn't work, third one didn't work. We were just pretty devastated that we just kept trying, throwing things at the wall, and just wasn't working. And at that point, decided to take a little break after that. And then jumped into IVF in March of 2022. And that's actually right around the same time that I found your program, Roseanne. I think it was a Facebook ad that I got hit with. And that's when I started listening to the podcasts and heard some of the success stories and knew that I wanted to join the 8-week Fearlessly Fertile program. It was super inspiring to be part of the program and to hear these women's stories and everything. So we did our first egg retrieval and we got 3 eggs and only one was like a viable embryo. And we, after genetic testing, all that stuff, we felt like, okay, we had this one embryo, that's a win. And then we had to do all this other stuff. We had to do a test transfer and we had lining thickness issues and I got COVID. There's all these things. So it took us, solid, I think 5 months until we could actually even try to do the transfer. And so we go in for the transfer. We're like, okay, everything's kind of come to this moment. And the doctor says, your lining's not ready. You need to, we need to try this again another time. Why don't you do another egg retrieval? And at that point, I'm, again, we're just like, keep losing. It feels like we're losing, right? Where things are not working out. And at that point, though, having already gone through your program, I felt a lot better about the fact that, okay, I could cry this out for a little bit and then realize this is a win because, as Roseanne says, it's like every little thing is a win. The fact I was even able to get that egg, the fact that, this is just a timing thing. It's not necessarily saying that it's not going to work. It just means I got to come back and try again. So, basically we then came back and decided to do the second egg retrieval. We got 6 eggs. We're like, okay, this is a great win. We've got, double the amount of eggs as last time. But again, we only had one viable embryo at that point. And then February of 2023 happened. We went in for the transfer. We're like, okay, we're finally doing this. A whole year has gone by of this whole IVF process. And we do the transfer and they tell us, okay, your ACG is, at a 20 or something. So be cautiously optimistic. You're slightly pregnant. And 2 days later, that was kind of harsh. It was like, I'd rather just know one way or the other. It was a hard one. And come to find out, that it was a chemical pregnancy after all, a couple days later. So after that, this had been 3 years at this point of kind of going through all these different procedures, doctors, all the different medications, just needed to take a break and really kind of reset. That's when I really took the time to dive into your book, your program, into the podcasts, and just really get my mind right and not be so focused on trying to conceive 24/7. And that is when we finally decided, okay, we're going to go on our belated honeymoon. And we went to Italy and it was fabulous. And we were able to actually fully enjoy, because we had spent so many years, saying we can't do this trip. We can't, do this or that because we might be pregnant. We might have a baby at that point instead of just living life. And I think that's what I had lost so much. And I think once joining the program, kind of getting back into my faith and who I am and just knowing that like my baby deserves the best version of me, which is me being me 100% and, giving to my husband and being, the best wife. And I think I kind of lost sight of a lot of that. So we're in Italy, we're having the best time. And I think it was the first time where I finally was like, okay, we're not paying attention to anything. We're just enjoying and kind of finally becoming who I am again. And then that was September of 2023. Yeah. And so then November 2023, Carson actually got COVID and it happened right during our ovulation window. And I was just thinking to myself, doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter. let's just have fun anyways,
My mindset had like over 100-degree fever and was like, well, this ain't going to work, but we'll just let it rip.
Yeah, that was the first time where I really felt like, you know what, it's not going to work and it doesn't matter because we're having fun. I get to have a period. This is a blessing, all those things. And and of course, that happened to be the time where period's late and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way. So I'm making excuses. I'm delaying taking a test. And one morning in December, decide, okay, it's time to take the test. My boobs are hurting a little bit. I think it's time. And I take it in the morning. And I remember Carson kind of like yells over, like, what does it say? I'm like, it says pregnant. and we look at each other and we just start laughing. And we just lay in bed. We just start laughing. Because I think we were just in complete shock. And I think the whole pregnancy, I think for the most part, we were in complete shock.
Yeah, it didn't seem real for the first probably 5 or 6 months, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was just like a lot to process, but yeah, it was.
But after a whirlwind pregnancy, we now have our sweet baby boy Finn, and he's 7 months old, and just the best thing that's ever happened to us. And just so grateful to have, been able to go through this journey, to learn so much from you and to the other wonderful women that share their stories and their fears and their concerns and all the things that, made me feel, I felt so alone throughout the process because so many of my friends weren't struggling. And yeah, it seemed very foreign to other people, and to have just a community of women that understand and can relate was just the most amazing thing and such a blessing. And to just be able to, regain who I was and myself and our relationship. And I think just everything set me up to be the best version of me, to be the best mom to Finn. So I feel very grateful.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like, there's so much to unpack there, but like, I have to say, like, high five, bro. It's going to be stopped by old COVID, right? Like, I mean, it was like, pow, it was ready. Nothing was going to get you down. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, so let's rewind a little bit, because Krysten, like, how old were you when this all started and they were telling you had diminished ovarian reserve, low AMH, and all these miserable things?
Yeah, so that was at 34, and I had Finn at 38. I'm almost 39. So
wow. Isn't it funny that you ended up, not funny, haha, but like kind of ironic, that you ended up being more fertile in your late 30s?
Yeah.
Than you were even before your mid 30s.
Yeah.
That I just find absolutely stunning, because women immediately go into cray cray when we hear, oh my gosh, it's not possible, and how many years have gone by. Like, you're living proof that that's actually not true.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then I remembered that because you came to my house in May 2023.
I meant to bring that up. Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself, she's going to have a breakthrough, because
I did.
Everything that you had been doing, I could see something in you that was done with suffering. Like, it doesn't surprise me that you guys ended up going to Italy, finally having your honeymoon, like really getting into that place where you had started to get back to who you really were. And then boom. I mean, because you said, so May 2023, you're in my living room.
Yes.
And then what was it? December, you take the test.
Yep.
I mean, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I thank you
for suffering to months.
Yeah. No, thank you for bringing that up, because I meant to mention that as well, because that was a huge, huge turning point for sure. Especially being, in the room with you, with those women, and just, so many tears were shed, but such a breakthrough of just a release of like that old way of being and feeling and kind of that I would never thought of myself as someone, through life that had a victim mentality. But in that sense, I kind of was bringing that in of like, oh, wait, why is that happening to, this person, but why not me? Versus, after going to your home, going through everything, being able to see a pregnancy announcement and think, that's amazing. So happy for them. Finally not crying. Finally knowing my time.
It's these kinds of things that come up, because I'm always curious about what it was. What was that turning point for that woman? Because you saw the invitation, like you could have blown it off and said, you know what, it's really inconvenient for me to fly to Houston. Why would I mean, California is amazing. And like, why would I go to Texas? You know what I mean? But you took the opportunity. What was it that caused you to do that? Because sometimes it's these little things. I mean, just like you took the opportunity to go to Italy, like it's all of these little things stacked. And then, poor Carson's down with COVID and we're still going to take the opportunity. I think this is such an important point for women to hear, because you could have just said, I don't need any of that. I'm just going to go about my business. But you did something different.
Yeah. No, I remember getting that invitation and just thinking, first thinking of all the things like, oh, here's the reasons why I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't. And then thinking, but why not? Like, this is the perfect time to do it. This is exactly, I feel like, what I need. I feel like I was starting to go in that direction of, kind of getting myself back, but having to really immersing myself in it and making sure that I was really going all in on less the baby journey, but just myself. And I think that was really what pushed me to do it. And he was super supportive about it, which was great. And yeah, never looked back, and so grateful that
And
you opened your home to us.
I think the power for the group of women to get out of their own environment to someplace new, to get out of their familiarity, things they're all used to and their programming, and step into a place where everyone can share and have breakthroughs together and feed off that energy. So I was like, go. Just
go. And I'll be honest, because like I said, when I did take the program initially, it was kind of a stressful work time for me. So I wasn't as immersed in it as I should have been. And I remember, when question time would come, like, I wouldn't ask a question every week. And now I'm like, why wouldn't I have asked a question every week? I should have been fully all in. And then you're right, to your point, being there, it's like, you have no choice but to be all in.
What was it like for you, Carson? I want to turn it over to you for a moment, because, and that's really like one of the other reasons why, doing this interview with you guys is so important, is I don't think that there's enough real understanding of the man's perspective, because I think it's really easy, of course, so much is happening within the woman, like naturally, of course, a lot of attention goes there. But I think a lot of guys are sometimes a little bit mystified by what to do. Like, how can I support her? Or there's not a ton that is available for you, because as much as this is a shared experience, it's also an individual one. Like, Krysten's having her thing, you're having yours, but what was this like for you to kind of be on your side of this and then watching what was happening to your wife?
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things. One, there was a lot of empathy, for me seeing, Kristen go through the emotional roller coaster, because I'm gonna be part of that also. But thinking about all the IVF shots, and I was just like, that was probably the hardest part for me, doing those shots, because I'm not as big on the kind of big pharma side of things, and so going that route and doing it was energetically a little tough, and seeing the pain it was putting on my wife, it was definitely troublesome. But for me, I would, from earshot, hear her on the calls with like the group of women, and I loved hearing it. Again, I wasn't listening in, but just like hearing just like the energy that was being shared, I'm like, okay, this is good. This is like, I'm all for that. And if any, I doubt, or very few, like probably husbands are listening to this, but maybe the wives will share it with this if they're listening. Is just the energy that the husband, like you bring, it's going to be felt. So obviously there's the supportive energy, but then there's also the belief and removing the doubts, and you going all in as well, because you're sleeping next to, your person every night, and thoughts are things and they carry energy. And so you being all in with that as well is going to have much more of an effect than you think. So this is not the time to sit back and be passive and think like, oh, well, I've done my job or whatever, or like my part is set. And so, yeah, just being an.
Wow, that's fucking brilliant. Because I think so many, they're just so confused. But really what you're talking about is like, look, your energy matters, right? And I think we've all been misled exactly by, big pharma. I'm with you on that, bro. But like, it's this whole thing is like, it's her problem, all of this stuff. But what you're inviting men to consider is the possibility that, hey, your energy matters here. This is a person that you love, and it's not just her vision, but it's a shared vision for your family, and how we show up for each other absolutely matters. Because you're right, thoughts are things. Like, that's not even woo-woo anymore. Like, anyone who's into physics, quantum physics, like, we know this. We know this. And Finn was an idea for you guys before he came to, onto the earth, right? What were some of the things that you did, if anything, Carson, to take care of you? Because I don't, like, a lot of men don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to take I'm a big personal growth person as it is, but so knowing that Krysten was, I was all for like being part of this group, knowing what that can bring. But I actually had more people on like the guy side of things and friends that have been going through the fertility journey. So there's some conversations on the golf course and being able to share what that was like, and just getting that camaraderie there was definitely helpful, and just the encouragement along the way. And my own personal practice, something that I preach is, gratitude. And so I would write every day, and it's going to make me emotional just talking about it, but I respond to a gratitude email every day, and I would write, I'm grateful for my kids. I love them so much. And when you write gratitude statements in the past tense, it's you are claiming that energy. In the beginning, your mind's gonna be like, well, that's not true. That hasn't happened yet. But you keep writing it, you kind of the belief becomes true in a being inside you. So having visions of the kids and writing that, it became just a sense of knowing. I was like, all right, I know this is gonna happen. We're just gonna have to get out of the way and let the universe do its thing. And it's really funny because probably the one time fully releasing any intentions was like, I have a huge fever. I don't feel like shit like this. And then why are we even doing this? And then, of course, that's when it actually happened. And that's just, God, the universe, like once you let go of those attachments,
Well, and
magical things
isn't
can
it
happen.
funny also that in your hearts and what was actually lined up with what you value, like doing this more naturally, like enjoying your lives again, like that lined up. And that's when Finn came in.
Mm.
It was more you guys in alignment, because all of this fear that Krysten was, and both of you were bombarded with, because you're getting pushed into IVF. I mean, you guys are like young by, like in my world, because like, I'm helping women, 20 to 52, so I see it all. But like to be pushed in to IVF so quickly, like that must have been overwhelming. And it's kind of this interesting irony and like just desserts at the end of the day that you guys got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. It's wild. I was telling Carson yesterday, we were out on a blanket in our yard playing with Finn and our dog Churro, and I was like, I've had this vision so many times, and even in your program when we've had some of these visualizations, and it's like we're here living it, and it still blows my mind. I mean, every day we look at each other and go, can you believe he's here?
I know. Yeah.
Like we did this. Like we created this.
And I think that's, I mean, it's such a testament to the love that you guys have for each other, but also the love for this vision that you created, because it's really easy to get sucked in. It's easy to get sucked into the idea that, well, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is our only chance. But you got something in you, like there was like a switch that must have flipped, because you were willing to kind of let go and just allow this to happen.
Yeah. And that was not in who I was and am. I'm very much of a control person, type A in that sense, and with things with work and all the above. And so, as I was mentioning to you, trying throw everything at the wall to make this happen, to let go was a really, really big thing, but clearly exactly what I needed to do.
So, and what was it like, I mean, throughout your pregnancy? Because obviously this boy was conceived naturally. And it's funny because when we're in IVF, like we're learning like the instant we're pregnant, right? Like we learn so early, and there's so much monitoring and like so much of that. I mean, did you guys take the skill that you learned like and apply it to your pregnancy? Like did that change anything about how you approached your pregnancy?
I think I was definitely still a bit fearful. I think that the shock, like Carson was saying, I think we were shocked probably halfway through until halfway that it felt like reality. But yeah, I think just leaning into our faith too, and just praying that it continued to go well. But it overall, I feel like pretty smooth sailing as far as our mentality towards it, until things did get a little dicey there in the third trimester. I got vertigo pretty bad. They say it wasn't related, but I was hospitalized for a few days, and luckily Finn was okay. But then had some growth restriction. He was, kind of behind and had stopped gaining weight. And yeah, it turns out that we went in for an ultrasound in July, a couple days before he ended up being born, because of this growth restriction. And we go in and they say, hey, 10 days ago, you had an ultrasound where you had, you were at a 9 for your amniotic fluid. Now you're at a 1. You need to get to the hospital right now. So we definitely had a little bit of an adventure with him coming in, but he's so strong, was in the NICU for a week and was just such a tough kiddo. And now he's, a big 18-pounder, perfectly fine, hitting all the milestones, doing great. But yeah, no, I think we definitely took that mentality of being a little bit more at peace, but I think still a little bit crept in as far as being a little bit more on edge, a little bit fearful here, especially like I said at the end, where it worked out really well. So
it's funny how everyone thinks that the work ends with the positive pregnancy test, but I think it's actually that's when the real shit starts. It's like, okay, now I've got 40 weeks, possibly less, and how am I going to approach this? But the kind of courage that you guys demonstrated even through that circumstance, like here you are today. What do you think, like Carson, what do you think were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from this overall?
Well, I think from the outsider looking in, Krysten touched on them, but there's the power of community. Because once you have once the group, your friend group knows like you're struggling, it's really hard to share with them and then they don't want to ask. So it's this weird, there's a weird energy there. I just know how to describe it. And so having a safe space for Krysten to go where there's no judgment, there's no pity, there's none of that, where she can just step into a place where, hey, we're all in this together and we see each other. Like that I mean, that to me is priceless, just for her to be able to be herself and have a community. And I don't think you can have that, even though your friends want what's best for you and the family and all that. There's just energetically is different. And so I think that I was really happy to see that for her. So that was a big blessing in learning just the power of the community and sharing amongst each other. And I wasn't in it, but I could see it in her energy shift when she'd come out of those calls. And
well, I'm glad.
It was really nice to see.
Sometimes think it's some sort of weird cult. Like when they hear some of this stuff, they're like, what's going on over there? But like you obviously have done the work yourself. You understood that. And I'm glad you could hear some of it because like, that's good for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think at first he was definitely like, wait a minute. And then he did the work and I told him that you were a big Joe Dispenza fan, which is like his guy. So that sealed the deal.
I know. I will say, and now this is not just like when I think about like, because husbands are a part of the decision, like whether or not, like the decision to join monetarily, all the things. So it's a group decision. And I will admit there was a couple big check marks that you had that I want to give you, where I'm like, well, you've been through this yourself. Obviously, like going to someone who hasn't gone through it himself, that'd be a red flag. And then 2, not some person who just is spiritually off in La La Land and Bali. No offense to that. Like there's some great people out there, but like you had like a real, job and been through that. Like, I'm like, okay, she had a real job and she's been through this. And I'm like, all right, I'm in. So that was where my head was at least on
and
the,
I think
process.
That's how you as a husband are a protector of your wife, right? Yeah. I think there's a huge difference between being an empowered protector and somebody that's just going to constrict the energy, right? It's a more fear-based approach, like that must be a cult or this is a scam, that kind of a thing. But it makes sense. It's, I think, a very important distinction that you're making, and being willing to sit back and trust your wife to be in a scenario that you could trust. I think that's great. Like I think it's awesome. Like, because it's a very different thing, because sometimes people will use the excuse, well, my husband won't let me, or all these other things, and it's like, won't let you. I mean, I think it's 2025. Like, I think, but it's just an excuse at the end of the day. But it's an interesting thing to hear from a man's perspective that, look, I want the best for her. And part of that includes making sure that the person that's going to be guiding her and supporting her is legit. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what were some of the biggest lessons for you, Krysten? Because I think that, obviously you guys both come from different and shared perspectives, but you did something that you frankly thought you couldn't do, at least not without medical intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like that was trusting myself, not losing sight of who I am, not putting our life at a back seat. I have some friends now going through like secondary infertility, and I obviously tell them all about you, but I also just tell them, hey, like if you feel like you're meant to grow your family, you are. Because that, and just like your sign behind you, which I always would keep that coin with me, right? The desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it's meant for you. Knowing that, visualizing that, the visions that we would, constantly just picture what we see as our family. And I think trusting in myself was the biggest thing. And then also, what else I learned is, man, how lucky I am to have this one and our strong relationship, and feel like we've grown so much together over these past, now 4 years of infertility. And my faith too. I think I, had grown up with faith and had not lost it. I still was spiritual. I'd still, I get on a plane and pray, God, please help me. But, it wasn't like I was as invested. And I think my faith has turned a corner, and I've gotten it back and then some, and now our faith together, where he didn't grow up with faith, and something I kind of always wondered, like, are we going to have that in our family and raising our kids? Now we pray at dinners together, and we've been doing that for years now, and it's something that kind of blows my mind that maybe this is why maybe we went through all this to kind of like get us on this path together, which is really special. So yeah, there's so many great things that have come from this journey, even though it felt so hard and felt so, like why are we going through it? But now I'm like, there's so many why.
I think that's really cool. And like, I think, Carson, like your perspective now, I mean, now that you've seen it, even if you didn't grow up with faith, like you're like living proof of it. You really get to lead your family in a completely different way as a man, and to be able to tap into that faith, and you guys are going to raise Finn in a way where he'll grow up with that. Like I think it's a benefit to everybody. And I can tell you, and it's funny because if you had asked me all those years ago when I was a prosecutor, if I would be talking about things like faith and talking about things like my time, get out of here and quit drinking, like I've just, but when you have experience like this, like what you guys went through, I know what I went through and my husband went through, like it really does come into your life for something better. Like, as we close this out, I mean, I'm telling you guys, like you called in Finn. Everything else, business, like work, whatever you creative wise, like that, the rest of that shit's a piece of cake. I really sincerely hope you guys never forget this, because it really is living proof of how much power you have and what you can call in and create when you guys are on the same page, and when you're in faith, and when you're in the belief that what you want is meant for you. Yeah,
Well
no, I
said.
mean, I'm like, I
Yeah,
can't wait to see
100%.
what these guys do next. I mean, Krysten, here's your coaching homework. Go and sit down with Carson, and you guys decide what you're going to do in the next 12 months. Cause like, I'm telling you, like, need more of these babies. Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being so open, so kind, and truly generous, because I think having couples talk about this, and I'm really honored, Carson, that you had the openness and generosity to share your side, because I think men need to hear these things, that they're not alone, and that you're not any less of a dude, and you're not like handing in your man card by being willing to just share and let, your brothers in faith, or even brothers on the golf course, like be there for you guys. And yeah, so thank you too.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and if any of if there's fathers, dads, husbands out there that this recording gets sent to, like, they can reach out to me. I'm happy to chat to anyone about this, to be support in any way. So, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of all of your help throughout my journey, and just the support from you, from the other women. It's really so powerful, and I feel so grateful to have found you, and to be here on this new part of the journey with.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. It's for women and couples like you that I do this work. And it's just one of the great delights of my life. So thank you guys.
Yeah. I will say I'm so grateful to be on the podcast too, because the podcast really is what drew me in, what gave me so much hope during such a tough time, to hear so many stories from women that had, gone through these difficult journeys as well to get to their babies. It's just so special. So feel very honored to
well, you
be
went
here
from
and
being
share.
a listener to a guest, baby, and that is gangster shit.
That was on my goal.
And it's kind of funny. I'm like, look, this has nothing to do with me. This ends up having to do with making the decision that you're going to be there. Like it's, we have the conversation in your head all the time. So like, just consider it done. So awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you. And please hug Finn for me.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much.
Loves, wasn't the conversation with Krysten and Carson just absolutely amazing? I love these two. You just want to squeeze them. They're so heartfelt and truly in the work. It doesn't surprise me at all that they manifested a natural pregnancy, because once they let go of the strangling Darth Vader death grip on their fertility journey and dove into their faith, decided to think differently, you heard how much Carson saw Krysten change and how that change had an influence on him. See, ladies, like, people think that recalibrating your mind and body is just about you. It's a selfish investment that you're making on the fertility journey when you should be saving up for fucking IVF that has an over 70% failure rate. You are your best investment. And Krysten and Carson are, again, living proof of this. So if you want to learn what I taught Krysten, go to my website, www.frommaybe2baby.com, and apply for an interview there. I work with exceptional women who are absolutely committed to fertility success, just like Krysten. Again, go to www.frommaybe2baby.com. My methodologies help women around the world make their mom dreams come true, and their results speak for themselves. And if you don't have a mindset for success on this journey, if your mind and your body are working against each other, baby. Women focused on success do not play games. They go all in their mind and body working together to manifest a miracle. So till next time, change your mindset, change your results. Love this episode of the Fearlessly Fertile podcast? Subscribe now and leave an awesome review. Remember, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. When it comes to your dreams, keep saying hell yes.